Um, there's two things that I do. The one is the media fasting, which basically means this. I started doing it in Lent originally, and then I liked it so much I just do it all the time, which is basically I only allow myself 20 minutes to read the news in the morning.
And you cut it off.
And then I cut it off. And what I find is I'm pretty much up with most of everything in 20 minutes.
Do not expose yourself unnecessarily to the barbed and despairing words of the blogosphere, where many making private judgments not theirs to make huff and they puff about this and that problem in the church as if they're authorities themselves. They puff and huff and puff about our leadership at this time. Folks, we're being tested. And these folks are failing the test. These talking heads, these blogosphere writers. Watch out. They will hurt your faith. You keep reading that stuff, it's going to hurt your faith. You're going to be despairing. Not a healthy despairing like these saints. It's going to be an unhealthy despair.
Be committed to a personal relationship with our Lord. Keep Him at the forefront of your minds. If you're anxious, if you're upset, come to the church. Kneel before our Lord in the tabernacle. That should help you regain your peace of soul. St. Ignatius of Loyola, when asked, what would happen to you if the Pope suppressed the Jesuits? He said, after 15 minutes in front of the Blessed Sacrament, I would have my peace of soul.
Are there any saints that you would recommend as far as their intercession and praying for the clergy, like St. John Vianney, or anybody that you would
Yeah, I think so.
recommend?
I think so. I think it depends on what you see the problem that the clergyman is having. So, for example, St. Joan of Arc is the saint that you pray for prelates or people who are trying to gain ascendancy in the church out of ambition and that are betraying the church. So she'd be the one to pray for that. Or you would pray, and you could also pray, I think St. John Vianney, I think, and any of the priestly saints throughout history. And for the religious orders, I mean, I think for the Jesuits, we should be praying to St. Ignatius and all the major saints there. I think it just depends on also if the person's struggling with chastity or the priest is having a problem in that area. We should be praying to St. Monica and St. Augustine and those times.
What about acts of reparation? What would you recommend? Holy hour?
Yeah, I think holy hours, I think having masses said for them, I think just offering up our prayers, suffering, and good works for the reparation. Actually, reparation is actually an act of charity towards God. So it's ultimately done to ameliorate how he's been offended. You know, we all talk about how bad these things are and how bad the bishops are behaving and, and all the people in the Vatican are behaving. And we're talking about how, we're just miffed about what our politicians are saying and doing. But nobody's talking about the fact that the one who takes the greatest amount of offense in all this is God. He's the one that's offended the most. The fact that we're offended, well, we kind of deserve it, frankly, given our sinfulness. He doesn't deserve any of this. And he's the one that's the most offended. And yet nobody's talking about this.
So can you give us some advice about how to maintain our perspective?
Yeah, I think it's... Yeah, well, there you go. Turn off the TV, stay off the news, the media. You got to get away from this stuff because it's by reading this stuff over. And people spend hours and hours and hours reading about all the problems of the church. Well, why wouldn't you think you'd be sucked into the vortex, so to speak? Okay. Pun intended. Okay. So the point being is that you have to turn that stuff off. In other words, you've got to stop the flood. You still have to pay attention to what's going on for the sake of basic prudence, what's going on in the world. And, there's varying degrees of knowledge that you can have of it, but if it starts to affect your charity or it starts to affect your perspective, then you've got to stop that. And this is why I tell people the only solution to this is that we have to become holy. That's the only way we're going to merit God correcting the situation. We are not capable of correcting this situation. And the last election, if anything, in fact, the last 2 years have shown us, if anything, we have lost control of our government. And so, we still have to do our civic duty and do what we can to slow that down or to counter that. But in the end, the only ways it's going to ever get straightened out is through holiness.
If we really want to change the world, if we want to help the church and help society, how can we do that? It seems so daunting. We can't call up Pope Francis or President Trump and give them our advice. We really can't make a difference that way. But we can make a difference in the daily level, on the daily level. Every single day, every person we encounter is an opportunity. And lest we think we aren't making an impact. But remember too, what that stone does when it sinks to the bottom. It unsettles the soil and all the stuff down there, and it causes it to have kind of a conversion, if you will. So even though we may not see things going on, we're making a difference day by day by day.
But a true intellectual, or somebody who has intellectual humility, will find the truth and seek the truth regardless of its source, regardless of where it is, because it's the truth, ultimately. And so he doesn't really care who comes up with it. He also delights in that truth when he sees it, regardless of who comes up with it.